Okay, so last year, well last month really, you would have seen me making my chess pieces. So now I'm working on the chess board. So as usual, I've gone to my brightly coloured pins to work out a design for the board that I like. I've got it colour coded and then worked out exactly what I needed to cut from each type of veneer. So as I've done before, I laid some masking tape over the picture and then laid down the wood. So for each of the individual playing squares, I've actually pointed the grain inwards, an inwards angle, to actually give a nice effect at the end. And I've decided to recover my lapsus calami box, which I did around about this time last year. So I've sanded it back, so I've got rid of all the varnish, so I've got a decent surface to go onto, and I'm going to redo the lining when I come to doing that. So I've got the first two sections done like this, and I'm going to glue these down first and then put some boards on and weigh them down so they completely dry flat and the veneer doesn't kind of creep up or bow. So I've marked these out in quarters, so I'm just doing the quarters at a time. I could have done all 4 sections, but I find that leaves you no room for adjustment when you're trying to put them in. So doing the 2 sections, that means I can work at an angle and hopefully get everything balanced. So just tape these on so they'll flip out the way. And I'm going to give this a fairly thin layer, so I don't want the glue to kind of eke up around the veneer, because I've had problems with that before. So just paint it on fairly quickly. I want it to be equally wet when everything gets pressed in. Being careful not to leave or make any kind of ridges in the glue, because again that will just eke up around the veneer. Okay, so these have glued overnight and they're pretty much there. There are a couple of bits that have not quite caught the glue, but they should hopefully catch in the next couple of processes. So I'm working on the next corner here, and I'm working along each row as I go so that it stays relatively neat, and I'm just taping over the top just to hold them in place until they're ready to glue. So I need to make some more banding to go in between the grid squares here. So I'm using using Avadir, maple and mahogany to make a nice strip. So first things first, I've cut out my pieces. These are about 2mm wide, some are a little bit wider, but I'm not too concerned about that because I trim them as I go in anyway. So just to make, or to build the strips together, sticking down some tape onto the table and then doing the outside edge first, so mahogany. Okay, so I'm coming up to the last bits of this board. I've kind of got into the swing of it now, doing it this way. Something that's I thought was a great design feature but turns out to be probably a mistake is cutting my individual pieces on a diagonal, so the grain's like that, and with something, if particularly this oak, the corners seem to come off way too easily, I think because there's almost nothing holding them on. So that's meant I've got a number of gaps here that I'm going to have to do something about, possibly. So that's kind of an ongoing issue, but generally it's going quite well. It's a fairly tedious process, but doing it in smaller sections does make it a little bit easier to kind of put up with the tedious bit of it. Although I did make the mistake of putting my tape on the wrong side of the veneer. Put tape on the back of the veneer instead of the front. So everything I now do I have to peel off before I can put it into place. Oh well, not a problem. It does make everything slightly more laborious really. And because I'm cutting a lot of quite thin pieces, I've deliberately cut them oversized to give them some sort of stability as I go along. But it's been a fairly enjoyable experience, except for the fairly occasional dropping things on the floor. My shed floor is covered with bits of wood and veneer. I haven't really had the presence of mind to have a sweep up. I'll do that once I finish this section. But I found the most useful tool to have is a lump of blue tack on the end of a ruler. This way you can go digging around under the table to rescue fallen bits of veneer rather than getting splinters everywhere. So that has become a useful tool to have in the shed. Probably not very professional, but oh, I never said I was professional. So I've already put on the first two sides here, and I've actually stuck them onto the flat surface and not curved them over, because I'm going to put some thin strips, so kind of matching colours, around the sides, but I haven't decided how far up I need to come, so I've put in oversized bits of mahogany. Okay, so I've done my top, and I've left a lot of the masking tape on until much later on. I'll take all that off before I start the filling. So now I've sorted out or started to do the sides. I could have bent the veneer around, but I don't really like the way that looks. So what I've got is 4 strips of very thin veneer, like banding, that I've kind of curved around the edge, so that when I glue those down they should smoothly cover it, and then take me from the flat here to the flat on the sides. So now I'm going to glue these in, and what I've been doing is using an old paintbrush, and each time I use it I wrap it in some masking tape just so that it stays usable. I'm not having to sacrifice more brushes than I really want to. See that here? No. You'll notice in the background I have a rather ugly looking box. There's a lot of filler on there. This is my Secret Santa for this year, so I'm going to be using this video in the new year, but that's just the progress. I'll get to that probably in January. So I'm in the process of removing the excess filler off my chessboard, and off my pieces as well. I was being too generous with the filler when I was putting it on, because I was expecting the powdered stuff to shrink back, and it hasn't. So I've got an awful lot of defillering to do on the pieces, although this seems to be coming off quite nicely, and I'm getting a nice layer of wood showing through. At the minute I'm using a 90 grit, no not 80 grit, and that's just taking the surface off. I don't really want to get into the wood yet, just want to get the kind of the bulk of the filler off. So I've got apron on and mask, but the problem with this thing is it pumps air out on this side, so as I'm right-handed I'm working this way and I'm getting it straight into my face, which is probably not ideal. So I've got to kind of work kick-handed like that, which is becoming interesting. I've lost a small piece of veneer here which I've put in a little pot, so I've got to repair that later on. So I'm just carrying on with this, and I've got to somehow work out a way of getting around the sides without causing too many other issues. I've lost a piece of the veneer here on this corner, and that's sitting in the pot as well. So some repairs to make, but I didn't expect to get through this without any repairs. So yeah, more sanding. Okay, so I've sanded back most of the way, so I've still got some more sanding to do, but I can do that as I'm finishing, and a lot of this filler is going to vanish away as I clean it up and put wax on. So that's done. I've got a couple of bits of chip out and some places where I had tape left on it and sanded over the tape, so that's got to be carefully picked off. So something else to do. But for now, I'm going to finish up the last of the veneering here by going around the edge. So on the lid, I'm only going to go around the top edge. I'm not going to do the inside. I'm going to paint that before I put the backgammon board on, so it's just a plain black. And I'm going to do the inside lip of the base and just ½ an inch or so on the very inside, so that when I put the lining up, I don't have to get it to meet the top, because that can be quite difficult sometimes. And I'm also going to put some scrappy bits on the bottom here, just around the edge, so that when I put a felt on the base, I don't have to go right way in. So okay, so the plan was to fill this and sand this and have that as the end of this section, but the glue on the bottom here hasn't dried yet, and a lot of the veneer is cut up, so there's more work than I expected to be done there. But I have trimmed back the edging here, and I'm going to run a little bit more fill around it once the glue has dried. So I'm just going to put some books in here just to weigh this down slightly, to try and level things out slightly. The backgammon veneer doesn't look fabulous. You can see in that angle. Right, it doesn't look great, so I'm debating whether to just peel this off and repaint, which I might do now I've got a bit more time to think about it. So I need to fill just around the edge to seat the edging in here and decide what I'm doing on the inside here, so I won't show you that now. But what I'm going to do before the end of this video is to show you the surface here. I'm going to give it a rub over with some white spirit, and that should hopefully get rid of the vast amount of filler I've still got left. So, just giving this a final once over with some white spirit. It just cuts back the extra filler. And that doesn't look too bad. I was expecting it to be a lot more gappy, but pretty good. So I'm going to call that an end for this part of the construction, and then I'll move on to the finish in February. So see where the sides come down and the pattern carries on. I'm actually quite happy about that. There's lots of gaps now where I've had to replace the veneer, but part of the course of this kind of project. So I'm going to leave that as is for now, and yeah, be back next month for doing the inside of the box and the final finishing. So that is chessboard, chess box completed.